and still pick the best guys, who, if we actually do a correlation, might actually be the guys that scored over 200. So the whole bunch of people, it could happen, that scored between 180 or 200 and 120. Perhaps the whole value the university then gets from them is the fact that they sold forms to them. So the question we need to ask ourselves is this done in the interest of the Nigerian student? Because I remember when Nelta was doing the prologue, he said many of the students will be happy. I'm not sure the students will be happy because you are just being fleeced. Yeah. But I think we also need to talk to the parents. Your child scored 120 over 400.
I mean,
why do you think that child should go ahead? Even though a university or JAMB says it can go ahead. Because you know the irony of it.
I mean, are you forgetting that these parents are the ones who go to bribe and get machinery
but you know the irony of all of
their
this,
children's exams or whatever they are called.
The irony of all of this is that we are lowering entrance to between 25 and 28%. Recently, NUC increased the pass rate in Nigerian university to 45%. Before now,
so they got in, they get in with 30. 40. And then when they enter, pass mark becomes 45 on them.
So what is that miracle?
They've gotten with 30.
What is that miracle that transforms somebody that comes in at 30 to become a 45er in his first semester? Okay. And if you remember, so the point we're making is that there is a confusion. NUC says this, JAMB says this, Vice Chancellor says this,
confusion.
Parents do many things.
Okay, Mr. Abali, let me read this. According to the JAMB registrar was quoted here as saying that 30% of those in higher institutions do not take JAMB or have less than the cutoff marks. The admission process is now automated with direct involvement of a registrar of JAMB for final approval. We have agreed to regularize admissions that were done under the table this year. From next year, we will not accept anything like that. That's JAMB registrar being quoted. ASU Chairman, University of Ibadan, Dr. Deji Omole says, rather than sanctioning the identified universities who admitted over 17,000 students illegally, that's what the JAMB registrar was saying, JAMB registrar simply regularized illegality and lowered cutoff marks to favor the interest of the friends of government who own private universities. That's from Dr. Deji Omole, University of Ibadan.
Well, unfortunately, you cannot fault Dr. Deji too much, because I also listened to the PRO of the JAMB guy who was on channels a few days ago, and I quote him verbatim. He said that what we are doing is, he said, those who have offended before to go and sin no more. Those were his words. In other words, they recognize that mistakes were made, but it's okay, it's fine. Let's forgive the past. Let's start on a new clean slate. That's essentially what he said here on this station. And then the ASU man have essentially repeated the same thing that he has said. Unfortunately, we have legalized, so many irregularities in this country, not only in education, across board, everywhere. So we see the same malaise that runs through society showing itself again in the educational sector. And again, for me, the conversation we should really be having, beyond just lowering or hiring of cutoff marks, would become, what is the human capital strategy that we are even deploying the educational system to fit, and what is the bigger picture? Because we are not even discussing these issues within the broader context of what we are trying to achieve as a country.
My issue with all of this is, will this lead us to produce better graduates?
Do we have plans to produce better graduates? Maybe we should talk about that. Well, Singapore did a similar exam.
Yes, it's funny.
Did a similar exam recently, and the average pass mark was 85%. That result was announced by the Prime Minister of Singapore. That's the head of the country announcing the pass rate. In all of this discussion, let me ask you a question. Has there been anybody that has executive powers that has talked about whether this mark is too low or too high, to tell you that we are not really interested? Let's also talk something very interesting. You played a song before we started discussion, and the song said, "Maybe meaning JAMB question," which means don't ask me JAMB question. And I asked that very simple question. That song was to suggest that JAMB questions are irrelevant questions. JAMB is an exam. That song was not an endorsement of an exam. That song was a castigation of an exam. And therefore, what comes at the back of the mind going to write that exam? That JAMB questions are not important questions. And maybe that's why they pass WAEC more, because nobody has sang maybe meaning WAEC questions. So the question is that there is a sense in which, I know if you ever wrote JAMB, you know they'll say JAMBA. There's a word we use to describe JAMB. We call it JAMBA in Yoruba, which is trouble, wahala, or disaster. Or they say JAMBA ti gbelo. I mean, so you realize that there is a negative, fearful attitude towards JAMB exams because it's relatively tougher. And that's part of this discussion we need to have. Is this exam the true test of the quality of the secondary school guide? Don't forget where we got here. State government took decisions and said people should not repeat in secondary schools. So people get to GS1 and get pushed to SS3.
All the way to SS3.
And because state governments now have that chance to choose between WAEC and NECO, something happened a couple of years back.
Hold your thoughts there. We'll just take a moment and we'll come back so you continue. Please don't go away.